Sasuke Aizen, the man who tried to stand tall above the heavens, and is one of the strongest characters in the entire Bleach universe, existing with his Hyogoku amps, as well as his Kyoka Soigetsu, a man so powerful that with the help of Ichigo Kurosaki, was able to defeat the almighty Quincy Yuha. And with the Bleach anime coming to an end sometime soon, I wanted to see how he would perform against another series that is heavily inspired by Bleach, Jujutsu Kaisen. This is mainly a question due to many characters within Jujutsu Kaisen wielding pretty weird and otherwise overpowered hacks, and with things like Gojo's Limitless and Sukuna's newly discovered existence Erasure Slash, could Aizen run the entire verse's pockets, or does the verse stand a chance against the Soul Reaper? Before I actually start the video, I'd like to mention how this will be done. Now, I've done videos on a single character versus several other characters before on the channel, so the way it works is like this. We drop Aizen into a endless void, and within this void is everyone within the verse of Jujutsu Kaisen. No planet busting, no self-destruction, Aizen versus everyone. Cursed energy and spiritual energy will also be equalized, meaning that yes, they can indeed see Aizen and all of their abilities work on him, and vice versa. And with that out of the way, let's get into scaling Aizen. Now, I believe that scaling within the Bleach verse is very straightforward, even though a lot of people seem to actually struggle on where to place it, with many people going as far as to dead serious cap it at planetary, or even just straight up say it's something like mountain level. But the first huge feat we would actually receive within Bleach would come from the self-proclaimed strongest Sternritter. Gremmy demonstrated a feat by generating an expanse of outer space. This created space was illustrated to contain a galaxy, suggesting that if Gremmy truly created the outer space, this galaxy would also be a part of it. Some people argue against this notion by suggesting that he simply opened a portal to outer space, but even that is just wrong. Even in the light novels, it is explicitly stated that Gremmy created the depicted outer space, without ever actually mentioning a portal, including the aforementioned galaxy. Gremmy possesses the power to turn any imagination into reality, a form of manipulation known as subjective reality manipulation, which is also just in line with the fact that Gremmy's entire ability is to turn his own imagination into reality. In the anime, the galaxy isn't present, which, if we're assuming there's just stars within the created outer space, would potentially get Gremmy into the solar system to potentially multi-solar system ranges of power. If we're using the manga, a galaxy is clearly portrayed within the panel, which we established that Gremmy would scale to it as he created it, as creation feats like this will always be above destruction feats, as creating a galaxy from nothing but your own power system is far beyond actually destroying a galaxy using your power system. It's important to note that Ichigo surpasses Gremmy in terms of power, and by extension of this, Aizen also scales to it, since within the light novels, it's stated that Yuha not only suffered defeat at the hands of Ichigo Kurosaki, but Sasuke Aizen as well. And Aizen does indeed have more spiritual pressure, so logically speaking, he should scale to it, meaning that he is indeed relative to the likes of Ichigo, who massively outscales Kenpachi, who was able to bully Gremmy, who actually created an entire outer space that potentially contains galaxy within it if we're using the manga. Meaning that if we're using the anime, his AP should be anywhere from solar system level to multi-solar system level, and if we're using the manga, he's potentially galaxy. To showcase his incredible speed, Commando Arc Ichigo skillfully dodged a Sero attack. The Sero, described as a spiritual light in the databook, was effortlessly evaded by Ichigo, which in the context of the story and scaling, the Sero can be considered as fast as light. On top of this, Ulquiorra's attack may be potentially 100 times more powerful than the Sero, as Kisuke explains that Ulquiorra's second resurrection functions in a similar way to a makeshift Bankai, granting it a multiplication factor of 100, which would place Ulquiorra firmly in the FTL plus ranges, even when considering a conservative estimate, and the fact that Aizen is far beyond that of Ulquiorra by the end of the 1000-year Blood War. This is a massive lowball. And this isn't even taking into account the feats that we get later on in the series. As for hacks, well, Aizen possesses Kyoka Soigetsu. The primary ability of Kyoka Soigetsu is complete hypnosis. When Aizen activates this ability, he creates an incredible, powerful, and complex illusion that affects all the senses of those who perceive it. This illusion is so convincing that it can manipulate the perceptions of not only individuals, but also groups of people or even entire environments. The nature of Kyoka Soigetsu's hypnosis is such that once someone sees Aizen Zanpakuto release, they fall under its influence. From that point on, Aizen can control what they see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. He can manipulate their perception of time, space, and even their own bodies. This ability makes it nearly impossible for anyone to distinguish reality from illusion, as they are completely at Aizen's mercy. The true power of Kyoka Soigetsu lies in the fact that Aizen can activate its hypnosis without the target even realizing it. By simply being within the range of Aizen's spiritual pressure, individuals can be affected by Kyoka Soigetsu's illusions, often without any prior warning or indication. This makes it an incredibly dangerous ability, as Aizen can use it to deceive and manipulate his enemies to gain a significant advantage in battle. So just to sum that up, Kyoka Soigetsu, Aizen Zanpakuto, grants him the power of complete hypnosis, allowing him to create intricate and convincing illusions that affect all the senses of those who perceive it, making them unable to distinguish reality from illusion. Now, within Jujutsu Kaisen, there are two ways to actually scale the verse, the first one being without domain expansions, with things like Jogo creating a fucking meteor and destroying several buildings, which can be calced upwards of city level, whereas if we're actually using the domain expansions, can be pretty concretely scaled to Dagon, who creates an entire island using his domain expansion, who several people by this point in the story would massively outscale. And cursed energy is also stated several times to amplify the curse user, meaning that domains, something that is made from one's cursed energy, could scale to the actual person themselves, since even Dagon's domain expansion is capable of being held up by Dagon for several days to possibly weeks at a time, as this is the hideout Kenjaku and the disaster curses we're using. As for speed, well, there is many statements of the speed of sound being pretty much just a baseline at this point, as Yuji from the Shibuya incident was shown dodging Choso's piercing blood, which Yuji during this time actually stated that he would only be able to dodge it half the time, despite him dodging it most of the time, to Maki pre-awakening having Mach 3 feats. However, as I mentioned, this is pre-awakening Maki, who isn't equal to Toji yet, which in my opinion is tremendously lowballing the entire verse in terms of speed, since these statements have contradicting things to them, which is why I find them to be kind of ridiculous. So just to make things a lot more simple, I will be using calcs no matter how debatable it is. The main calc would come from Maki catching Mai's bullet during the Goodwill event, which has a calc that is upwards of Mach 20 or massively hypersonic plus, and as I mentioned, this is Maki during the Goodwill event, who literally got fucking cooked by Jogo in one attack. The same Jogo who was getting manhandled by Sukuna. And another great way of actually scaling the higher tiers within the verse would be within the fight of Kashimo versus Hakari, with Hakari reacting to Kashimo's lightning, which if we consider it to be an actual lightning bolt, as even the chapter itself had a science advisor for accuracy, could potentially also mean that Hakari could react to lightning and is possibly hundreds of times the speed of sound, which is a lot more consistent with the calcs provided, as well as higher tiers like Kenjaku casually dodging piercing blood, which is the speed of sound. The highest form of speed for Jujutsu Kaisen speed would be saying that top tiers within the verse scaled to the speed of Hollow Purple, which, using the fact that it's imaginary mass, would get it to faster than light speeds. No one in the series actually scales to, and the closest thing that we can get to that is Sukuna reacting to a 200% Hollow Purple, as it's actually stated within the scan that Sukuna didn't actually sense Hollow Purple until the last moment, which would get Sukuna as well as Gojo to faster than light ranges of speed. And with the new chapter, Kashimo potentially also scales to this. But as I mentioned, this is merely reaction speed. Although we know that they don't scale to the speed of Hollow Purple in either combat nor traveling speed, as we don't have enough evidence to say that. Even Toji, who Maki should be equal to, was shown getting blitzed by Hollow Purple. Realistically, no one in the series should scale to the speed of Hollow Purple, with the exception of Gojo and Sukuna, and even that is just reaction speed, as I mentioned. Now onto the versus hacks. Now, Jujutsu Kaisen's hacks are of course their curse techniques, as well as their domain expansions, with domains pretty much just having their sure hit effects, which means they're unavoidable by even the likes of Sasuke Aizen. If he's exposed to a domain expansion with things like Mahito's curse techniques being able to attack your very soul and shape it into whatever he wants, and while you're in his domain, you're exposed to the effects without him having to touch you, or Gojo's Limitless that allows him to never be touched, and his domain expansion that floods your mind with limitless information. Just as a quick side note, anyone's attacks that don't have any sort of amplified curse energy such as normal hits, kicks, etc., would do absolutely nothing to Aizen, due to him outscaling many hundreds of thousands to possibly millions of times over. Even if they all somehow landed a normal hit on Aizen, it wouldn't even tickle him. And even characters like Mahito, Toji, and even Maki, who have techniques and weapons to attack your very soul, wouldn't affect Aizen, as it would be very disingenuous to actually say these significantly weaker characters who use soul-based attacks could even damage Aizen, who is legit just a soul who is far, far stronger. Not to mention the significant Jujutsu Kaisen speed disadvantage they're at due to them pretty much just capping at FTL if you were to somehow scale them to Hollow Purple, whereas Aizen extremely lowballed is over 100 times the speed of light. Essentially meaning the only thing they could do against Aizen is use their curse techniques or their domain expansions, which is extremely useful for opponents who are significantly faster than you. If we were to ignore the fact that spatial manipulation can actually bypass Gojo's infinity, and the fact that this would potentially mean that anyone who is the speed of light or approaching it could just bypass infinity due to anyone who is approaching the light speed also increases in mass in distorting the space around them, then Gojo would 100% just be the sole reason Aizen would even struggle a little bit. This would also just be ignoring the fact that Aizen is a spirit and the fact that spiritual attacks can potentially just bypass infinity. However, the actual issue comes when Aizen uses Kyoka Soigetsu and just bullies him. We might also just be able to say that any domain expansion could potentially just be negged by Aizen's sheer Ryotsu alone, as in Bleach, you can negate hacks by literally just being stronger in a very similar way to Dragon Ball. And if we're being realistic, they shouldn't even be able to withstand Aizen's spiritual pressure alone, whereas pretty much any character who even approaches him or is in the proximity of him, even attacks like Hollow Purple wouldn't even hit him due to it being significantly slower, and all of their hacks just scaling far lower than Aizen himself. I'm sorry to say it, but I'd be surprised if they could even last a minute against his Ryotsu, let alone this man fucking trying. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. This is probably the last Jujutsu Kaisen upload for probably a few videos, so if you do want to see more Jujutsu Kaisen on the channel, be sure to drop a like and comment down below, and let me know what you thought of this video, and yeah, bye.